What's good, friends list, episode 119 of the Gamecast coming at you. Perfect Dark is looking to be the first of many high-profile projects from Microsoft's newly founded studio, The Initiative. But when news recently broke that Square Enix's Crystal Dynamics had been tapped to lend a hand to the new quadruple A studio, concerns set in amongst some fans. So, this week, we examine what exactly could be going on with Perfect Dark's development, and if concern should be shown for the reboot, considering many studios lean into outsourcing work to external studios. Is this move to ramp up production, or could this be the beginning of a possible trend for the young development studio? We try to find the answer. Also, Konami seems to finally be making its way back to premium game development. Capcom sets its focus on the PC market, and much, much more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and of course all other major podcast services wherever you get a podcast at. Be sure to rate us, subscribe us, review us, all that stuff, or subscribe to us, I guess I should say. You fucking know the whole rigmarole, all the jazz I tell you every week. Wherever you get a podcast at, try to find us on there. Much appreciated. If we're not on that one, let me know. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and of course our dope giveaways. I'm your host as always, Travis White, aka Travelis, on most internet platforms. Joining me as always, my partner in crime, my co-pilot in this, what's the phrase? My heterosexual life mate, I believe is what it is, pretty much. Anyway, yeah, I think that's what the saying is. Anyways, though, my man, Mike P-Pack. Mike, as always, my friend, what's good? What's going on? And what have you been playing? Even though I already probably know what you're going to say, but sure, just tell me, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a lot of Diablo 2 Resurrected. That's no surprise, but also over the weekend, spent quite a bit of time with the Halo Infinite beta. I was able to get it fixed, basically. Evidently, they don't like whenever you have it installed on a different hard drive, so I just uninstalled it and reinstalled it to my main hard drive with my OS on it, and it seemed to basically fix all the issues that I was having. So that much was fixed, and I got to play both of those a lot not a lot over the weekend because I did a little bit of traveling, but I did get to play them.
I accidentally muted myself. No, but yes, that's pretty much the same boat I'm in. Where, except for Diablo, I haven't been able to. It's one of those things that I've been trying to find time to game, but for once, I think this is like the least amount of time I've been able to game in like the past decade. For just a bunch of random shit, shocker, I'm getting married in a couple weeks, so like a bunch of shit with that going on, plus a bunch of shit with work going on, plus the dog was sick last week, and trying to fucking do stuff with 3D modeling and whatnot. I've been trying to make time for gaming as much as possible, but, as Dr. Ian Malcolm, aka Jeff Goldblum, famously said, life finds a way. So, unfortunately, I haven't been gaming as much, but this past weekend, I did go heavy as well into the Halo Infinite beta. A much different experience, I'm sure, than you in terms of the style of game that I was playing. I played a ton of fucking big team battle. And from a social standpoint, I thought it fucking felt fantastic compared to the previous weekend, which I felt like, I don't know how drastic some of the changes are being made in terms of buffing and nerfing and just shit in general with balancing within the game, but some of the tweaks that have been made from weekend to weekend for the flights, I felt has been pretty drastic in like either direction. Like, I think Golden Boy said it best on Twitter. He was like, it was such a ride with this beta where he went from immediately loving it to despising it to feeling indifferent to then just falling back in love with it again. And I really feel like that was me in this nutshell with this game, that it felt at times so just fucking perfect, but then at times like for example, my biggest criticism, which to be fair is they can figure this shit out, it's easy stuff to do, but it's just boggling my mind. It's something that hasn't been done with how many people have been bringing it up. It's the magnetism for melees, that like, just from playing Halo for so long, knowing how close you probably need to be for a melee, and it not doing that. And yeah, you gotta adjust, it's a new game, whatever, yada yada. But I mean, it's really, really like, it's really off, if you ask me personally. I mean, there's been a multitude of times where I'm either getting an assassination, a backsmack, you know, finishing off with a melee for a kill, that it just completely, I'm literally reticle should be, you know, ready to lock on, bam, right in front of them, like 6 inches away, and it not grabbing onto them. Like, come on, man, come on. Or being like, just out that, right at that window of like, hey, I've been playing Halo for how long? I know this is where if I hit a melee, I'm going to smack into that person. And it not doing that and being like, okay, give it an extra little tiny bit earlier or later to like find that sweet spot, and it not doing that, then being like, okay, what the fuck is going on? But that's all stuff that is relatively, I would imagine, but I'm also an idiot, and on the programming end and things like that with, you know, game development, it is extremely hard, and I am not going to say, hey, yes, I know what's going on with this and yada yada, but I feel like that's something that can be relatively accessible to, you know, address. But in general, though, I felt that the gunplay was much tighter this time around. I felt that movement and definitely performance overall for the PC port. I mean, both you and I were playing on PC, so the PC version of this game has been increasingly more and more optimized as it's gone on, which I figured it would probably happen. But in general, from the start, from the first weekend we got our hands on this game, I feel like technically this game has improved and improved and improved and improved from that standpoint from PC. I don't know about you. I know you were saying, hey, last weekend it was tough as shit to get in to just fucking get this thing to work. But at least now it seems like some of the issues, even on 343's end, at least technically have been addressed for you with performance-wise.
Yeah, and I mean, just being able to play the game in general.
Right, yeah,
and
not getting banned every, 2 games because your game crashes.
Yeah, that was definitely an improvement. I will say, from one weekend to the next, I did feel like I felt like they did. I know they're trying to say that they didn't do that much, but I do feel like there was some changes done to the game. And I mean, overall, I pretty much spent all my time in Social Slayer, and then kind of had to play as a team of 4, because anytime you search solo or a duo, well, duo is probably the sweet spot because you would get like reasonable matchmaking that way. But if you played as a solo, I was up against Sentinels one game, like the full team, and it's just like, bro, it's just there's a lot of issues with the matchmaking there that made it a lot of not fun.
Yeah.
And I can't even really get mad at the teams that are playing as teams of 4, because people would be like, oh, maybe they shouldn't be practicing as a team of 4 or whatever, which, like, sure. But the problem is, with the tournament being 8 days after release, people have to get their practice in at some point in time. Like, we can't just ignore it. So it sucks, but it is what it is. I mean, the game, there's just no way that the social arena that we played this weekend, like, there's no way that the competitive game that we play in December can be anything like that. So there's not a lot of redeeming qualities that were present. The maps that were present were terrible. Behemoth was just not a good 4v4 map, and pretty much just found myself, every time Ghost or Warthog were coming up, I just found myself running to them and throwing them off the map because they just shouldn't even be there. I can't fight back. They removed the ability for the plasma pistol to completely basically disable the Ghost or the Warthog. So the only way you can do it was like with a railgun. So Yeah, or the lightning, or the shock rifle, whatever the fuck it was called. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in that game that is just not very good. Camping around the corner with radar, with the BXB glitch, or with assault rifles in general.
Mhm.
Basically, I saw a lot of pro players who are meta slaves, and like it's okay to be a meta slave, but they were posting their player cards and they have like 42% accuracy, which my player card
Yeesh.
has over 60%. Or like it was like 58% probably, because I did like miss like with the ghost or whatever, and you rack up a lot of shots fired there.
Mhm.
So basically, like I found myself being like, yeah, I'm not going to use the assault rifle, and I'm not going to use the BXB glitch, because there's just no way either one of those make it into the real game.
Right, yeah, so why start accustoming yourself to using those when it's
Exactly.
that's a waste of, mental space.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, the competitive version of it, there's going to be hopefully a lot of difference. I felt like the battle rifle was a lot of fun to shoot.
Yes.
And I hope that is the starting weapon. I mean, people are saying maybe the commando, but I don't think. I think the BR would be sufficient. It was really nice to shoot at other people. It felt like the auto or the aim assist wasn't too crazy, and it felt like there was some outplayability whenever other people had a BR that you could crouch and strafe and do things of that nature.
Mhm.
I will say the movement speed's a little bit too high, because tight strafing was a little bit out of control.
Mhm.
But outside of that, pretty favorable. I mean, I enjoy playing something different, sure, but I still found myself like after about an hour and a half of playing of being like, okay, bro, like I'm done with this. Like I wanted to play something else, because just searching as a team of 4 that you are hopefully going to go to Charlotte with is like, or Raleigh with, it's just not fun, because I know we were just like absolutely destroying people that just like had no business playing us, but like it is the way, like we had to get our practice in. It's just
Right.
really weird. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Sorry if you ran into me and my team of 4 at any point in time during the
That's
technical
not what
preview.
it's not what anybody wants. It's not what you want. It's not what.
Yeah, like I know
Yeah.
nobody. I know they weren't having fun, and I know I wasn't even really having fun. So
Right.
no one's winning, but it's what has to happen. We have to get our practice in, and as much as it sucks, it is what it is. And hopefully everyone that wanted to play it got to play it and enjoyed it, and hopefully your experience wasn't too ruined by that.
Yeah. No, and see, me personally, I really, really enjoyed Behemoth in a social standpoint, like for playing just standard like arena 4v4 CTF. Like I thought it was really fun. Whenever it's like nobody's really caring, everyone's just getting used to trying to play the game and not necessarily in a super competitive standpoint. Like I had fun with it. And like Fragmentation, the big team battle map that they had, I thought was fucking fantastic. Like I really enjoyed playing on that. Like it felt very like a very traditional Halo style big team battle map. I thought the weapon placement, weapon spawns, I thought the lanes were also pretty good in the map. Like I thought it was just a well laid out map. And I think too, some of the really cool touches, like I know a lot of people were spotlighting it on Reddit and Twitter and shit like that. Like, oh, whenever you get a flag like a flag cap, the Forerunner building that you're in will shoot like a light beam out, and it's just like cool things like that. Like the actual like layout of the map, the small details of the map outside that are more cosmetic than anything are really cool. It's atmospheric in tradition with Halo. I think really hits it on there. But outside of all that, I think the map plays well, even just if it's big team battle. Yeah, whatever. But it's going to be one of those things that at least it's going to be fun to jump in with friends and, get in and play that. And I totally agree about the battle rifle. I thought it felt miles better than it did even a week ago. And it's crazy that me, as somebody who like has played first person shooters for a very long time, but plays them very casually, but was able, like, I've been able to pick up this in this game, like, man, this is shooting completely different than when it was like you could really tell that, at least I feel like, changes are being made. They may be small, big, indifferent, but you could tell changes are being made, which is all you could really ask for in this sense. And with, basically 2 months out, hopefully that just means more changes are on the way and more feedback and more everything, because that's it. That's the last time we're playing that game until December. So
Yeah.
which is unfortunate, like you're saying. So it is what it is, but I would have liked to see, hey, we're having an actual full-on beta weekend where you're going to get, a couple game modes and, something that's a little more fleshed out, or at least a beta that is, hey, we don't have to worry about, we want to flex this as much as possible, so we're not even putting any time limit. Like, you were able to play from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. until midnight every night or something like that. Like, you were able to actually flex the servers on this game because we're going to need to whenever fucking December rolls around as a free-to-play game. Like, people are going to fucking jam-pack this game for like 2 or 3 weeks. So, it's just, I wish we would have got that one more beta just to really fucking push this thing, to really try to break it as much as possible before then, but we're not. So, like you were saying, it's like you can only hope for the best at this point. And, we've done all we can. I know a lot of people have actually, which I was really happy with, taken to the actual, submitting tickets, letting the developer know about, or 343 know about bugs, letting them know when your game's crashing or whatever. Actually submitting tickets to this will make a difference. And a lot of people don't really think about that when they're trying out betas or whatever, but if it happens and you're interested in playing this game and you like playing the beta, you're going to want to play the full version. You're going to want to play it with not any of that shit. So it's one of those things you see something, say something, so it only helps everyone at the end of the day. But anyways, though, Mike, enough about Halo, even though we're probably going to end up talking about it at some point during the show, like we always fucking do. But let's head into Button Mash and get the show kicked off here. If you're new to the show, Button Mash is where we get you set up with the quick hit news stories of the week before we head into our big topics. So, kicking off Button Mash, Ubisoft has announced Ghost Recon Frontline, a first-person PvP shooter that will be free to play. Ubisoft in a free-to-play game, shocker. With support for over 100 players, it's an objective-focused spin on the incredibly popular Battle Royale genre. Another shocker, a free-to-play Battle Royale. Who would have guessed in 2021, baby?
When I made all these comments about wanting Ubisoft to make a classic Rainbow Six experience, and then saying, "Oh, I'll even settle for a Ghost Recon game," this isn't what I meant. But continue.
To be honest, dude, they were even pushing sales for hey, Ghost Recon Wildlands is on sale for $6 this week. And then I was like, you know what, I actually might pick that up. Completely being no, we're not even going to talk about Breakpoint. That's no. So I may actually pick that up because I've heard good things. You played that game, right? You played Wildlands.
No,
Oh, I thought you did. But I've heard decent things about that. Breakpoint, no, I heard that wasn't necessarily what they were hoping for. But anyways, though, public play testing will begin this month, but a full release date has yet to be announced. Ghost Recon Frontline's flagship mode is Expedition, in which 102 players are divided up into teams of 3 to battle for victory on an island map. To win, a team must find and claim 3 pieces of intel, which allow them to then head to a designated drop zone and extract from the map. When the extraction helicopter is called, though, other players are alerted and have the chance to attack and steal that team's extraction in order to claim victory for themselves. Why do I feel like I've heard this before? Why do I feel like this is... We haven't played a game like that before, right?
I don't think.
I feel like it's on... It's definitely not Hunt Showdown. It can't be. That can't be Hunt Showdown. That definitely can't be. I'm thinking of something different. It can't be, because Hunt Showdown, you do basically the exact same thing. Anyways, when the extraction... Oh, wait, I already read that part. Whoops. It's an objective design that sounds like a blend of Ubisoft's own Dark Zone from The Division and Crytek's Hunt Showdown. Hey! Ubisoft also notes that there are other tactics that can be used to win. Aside from rejecting the last team standing approach to a battle royale, Ghost Recon Frontline also ignores the idea of a shrinking circle. You'll have access to the entirety of its 16 square kilometer map for the full duration of the match. The map is divided into 4 different biomes and hosts 20 different landmarks. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to jump in here this month coming up, public play testing is going to be there. I would like to at least try it out because I love Hunt Showdown, so I'm at least going to give it a shot, all kidding aside. The Aston Martin Valhalla is yet available, but you'll soon be able to try one for yourself in Rocket League, which is set to introduce the latest iteration of James Bond's iconic car on all platforms as part of its ongoing Bond 007 collaboration. The Aston Martin Valhalla is the first hybrid car in Rocket League, which will be available to players for 1,100 credits in the item shop. It will be released alongside the Bond 007 collection, which will bundle the Valhalla with the Aston Martin DB5, the classic iteration previously released over the summer. It will be available for 2,000 credits. EA has announced that players who purchase the standard digital edition of Battlefield 2042 will be able to upgrade from PS4 or Xbox One to new-gen PS5 or Xbox Series X/S versions free of charge. This is a U-turn on EA's previous stance, which required players to own the more expensive Gold Edition to be entitled to an upgrade. The standard digital edition of Battlefield 2042 on PS5 and Series X and S now includes EA's dual entitlement feature, meaning it comes with both generations of the game. So far, EA has only announced this feature for the digital version of Battlefield 2042, and so, at least currently, it appears the game's physical copy of the game will not be included in this dual entitlement new gen update. But I believe I went back and double checked this after I already put the show together, and they did put out a word on that saying that I believe so, but you have to buy the PS5 version or Xbox Series X version of that, which I'm pretty sure is just going to be the same disc on the Xbox side of stuff, so you guys won't really have to worry. It's our friends who play PlayStation who will have to worry about that. So if you are a dual person like me who plays on both consoles, make sure you buy the PS5 version if you're going to do that. Xbox has partnered with Rockstar Energy Drinks to unveil a series of collector's edition cans, all featuring the iconic Master Chief design, and now available to buy. Each can will provide fans with a chance to win in-game cosmetics and even an Xbox Series X console, which is probably going to be the easiest way to get this console right now for the longest, for the next couple years, it seems like. Each can will also offer fans in-game content for Halo Infinite, alongside the chance to win special prizes such as copies of the game or even an Xbox Series X itself. Under the tab of each can, you'll find double XP tokens, in-game emblems, and even a black and gold Nocturne Star collection of vehicle and weapon coatings. So watch out for that. And if you like energy drinks like me, go buy one. Illphonic, the developer behind Friday the 13th and Predator Hunting Grounds, is working on a Ghostbusters game. I'm pretty hyped about that, actually. As pointed out by Reset Era user Chair Home, Illphonic Studio co-founder Raphael Sadiq casually revealed the title in a recent interview on the music podcast Questlove Supreme. Sadiq let slip news that the company is working on a Ghostbusters tie-in after being asked how many games the studio currently has out. Quote, Friday the 13th is the last one, and Predator, and we're working on Ghostbusters right now, Sadiq said, before quickly moving on to talk about the studio's most recent project, Arcanegeddon, which is currently available in early access and out in 2022. Paradox Interactive has stopped development on multiple unannounced games in an effort to put more resources into safer bets for the company's profits. The publisher announced the cancellation in a press release on Thursday. Paradox says they are still working on 15 new games, including Victoria 3, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, Crusader Kings 3 on console, and the Shadowrun trilogy on consoles. Paradox is also working on many new DLCs. Paradox CEO Frederick Wester said the company is focused more on the company's reputation for strategy games and making games last long after launch. Rosario Dawson, the actress known for her portrayal as Ahsoka Tano in The Mandalorian and just various Star Wars properties, has been revealed to be joining the cast of Dying Light 2. She will play a major character within the survival horror series sequel. As reported by GameSpot, there we go, fans were updated with news of the actress's involvement in the game as part of the development team's recent Dying Light 2 Dying to Know stream. Dawson will be playing a character known as Lawin in Dying Light 2. Described as a, quote, warrior of sorts, the actress says that her character is a, quote, very tough woman who is fighting her past and looking to seek revenge on the people who wronged her. As fans continue to wait for the release of Ghostwire Tokyo from Tango Gamesworks, studio founder Shinji Mikami has revealed another new title is already in the works, and it's being led by Evil Within 2's director. Mikami appeared in a video with Xbox head Phil Spencer as part of Microsoft's live stream event during the first day of the Tokyo Game Show, and hinted at a new title, saying that Johannes, the director of The Evil Within 2, is working on it. Mikami mentioned Johannes when prodded by Spencer to talk about the GameWorks philosophy of fostering young new talent. Quote, "Right now, John is in the middle of working energetically on a new game," Mikami told Spencer. According to Capcom COO Harushi Tejimoto, the company behind Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, and Street Fighter, and many other games, is planning to, quote, mainly focus on PC software in the future. As reported by VGC, Tsushimoto was speaking to Nikki and shared that the success of its PC software has been, quote, driving global sales, and he thinks, quote, PCs will be the next big thing after smartphones. Quote, "PC is driving global sales," Tsushimoto said. "We have recently stated that we will make the PC our main platform. At this year's Tokyo Game Show, we focused on exhibiting the PC version of Monster Hunter Rise, and I think people will be able to experience the change in our approach. The pandemic is changing the way people look at PCs. Smartphones are convenient, but their screens are small and the touch panels are difficult to operate, so they are not suitable for home working or school classes. I think the PC will be the next big thing after smartphones," end quote. So, Mike, after running it through button mash, anything you want to run back before we head into our big topics for this week?
Yeah, basically the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, I guess Master Chief getting on the can of Rockstar is kind of cool. It kind of takes you back to being on Mountain Dew bottles and things of that nature.
Halo 3,
Halo
Halo
3.
4. I remember I pretty much like grinded like halfway through pretty much all levels in Halo 4 in like the first weekend, just because my part-time job in retail, I was able to buy like Mountain Dew bottles for like 25 cents or something like that.
Mhm.
And like people would always just give me their caps. So I literally had just like a big fucking bowl of the caps that I just kept putting in for like whatever it was, like 2-hour double XPs or whatever. So anytime I'd get on to play for like 6 hours, I'd be running through and getting through. Anyways, though, continue.
Yeah, no worries. But obviously that's pretty cool. And Rosario Dawson, we see another crossover with Hollywood to video games, so that's pretty cool, I think. Outside of that, not much that I want to talk about. We can you can take it from here.
Not much. Okay, that's fine. Hey, if there's nothing to talk about, Mike,
there's a lot. But, there's a lot of stuff there, but you know.
No, I know what you mean. No, definitely. There was something I was gonna say. Oh, but two big things that I wanted to take away from Button Match, just reading through. Obviously, really hyped to see what is next for Tango Gameworks, because that will be their first, in what we understand now, Xbox exclusive game coming out of their Bethesda's Microsoft deal. So I'm really excited about that. I love the Evil Within franchise, so while I don't think we're necessarily going to get an Evil Within 3, maybe in that universe, or maybe just something in the vein of that, another traditional either survival horror experience, or even what we got, since The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2 are kind of drastically different games in their approach and what you do in those games. Evil Within is much more almost traditional, like level-based survival horror, where The Evil Within 2 is much more open and much more of a pseudo-open world game, if you want to call it. Like, so in that case, like, I would love to see what they do next. I'm really excited. And I'm really excited to see the response for what they're going, like what fans are going to receive after that, especially being how much of an emphasis Microsoft's willing to put on, hey, we want to work with more Japanese developers. We want to work and, really get into that sect of our audience that we've struggled to really communicate with for so long. Have products that speak to them, that sect of our audience that really has, been a barrier for us. And, so having a development studio like that, obviously owned by a Western company, at the same time, I'm really excited to see what Microsoft can do, or Tango Gameworks can do with Microsoft's backing and everything like that. But, because the big thing was always, with Tango Gameworks, it was, Evil Within's awesome, Evil Within 2's awesome, even though, like, Bethesda does make a lot of money off, Fallout and Elder Scrolls and everything like that from their proper, Bethesda Game Studios proper and whatnot, it's still one of those, well, did it sell enough? Did it do enough? Like, kind of thing. And people were always worried about that in the Wolfenstein series. So, hopefully now that isn't a worry because of Microsoft's backing, that we can get more experiences like that. And even having a home on Game Pass, like, maybe it's a Game Pass exclusive kind of thing. So I'm really excited about that. And then also, too, Capcom focusing on PC is huge to me. I've been seeing so much more, too, over the last year as somebody who plays a ton on PC. Over the last year, I've noticed how really frequent, I've been seeing a ton of Capcom sales on various different third-party key sites, Games Planet, Green Man Gaming, things like that. Just something I've always noticed, that Capcom really seems to be pushing out their additional keys out to these sites to really at discounted prices. They're always trying to push them. It seems like a much bigger emphasis on PC, and people are buying them. There's just even looking on my Steam catalog, like super quick, the amount of Capcom games that I have on here: Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2, Monster Hunter World. Resident Evil 3. I was gonna say, I knew I had another one, Resident Evil Remake. Like, tons of games that already like end up being in the games that I play consistently on here. Street Fighter, like, it's stuff like that that, like, when you look at the response that that they get in the amount of, especially too, if you think of Street Fighter, like, that's really one of their biggest games just from an esports standpoint. Like, the amount of people, kind of moving over to, or the amount of leagues moving over, hey, we're going to support PC as our preferred platform because of the the least amount of latency, the ability for it to be played at the highest, level possible in terms of performance, not necessarily graphical quality, but making that transition, it makes a lot of sense for Capcom to do that. So I'm super excited to see that, because I'm super excited for even more of their games to get really optimized very well, even though they do in a really great way already. I think Resident Evil 2 is one of the best looking, and Resident Evil 7 really too, and 8, like, are some of the best looking games, period. And Monster Hunter has such a huge fan base, including myself, so I'm super excited to see what kind of comes out of that. But anyways, Mike, let's head into our big news and topics for this week. And I'll be honest, I dropped the ball last week. I knew when I was putting the show together, like, man, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I feel like there's something that we're not talking about. And then after the show, even I was like, man, I feel like we're forgetting something. And then it hit me. We didn't talk about the whole Perfect Dark Crystal Dynamics initiative situation. Like, the biggest news in Xbox that came out of Xbox last week. So I figured we'll talk about it now. Better late than never. Just because it is such a big story, even though I personally don't think it's that big of a thing. I know a lot of people, as more info is coming out and more people are starting to understand what this relationship looks like, I think are kind of having a similar standpoint. But it is interesting to think about, because I think this is a big question for the future and what's coming. So Jeff Grubb, our friend over at GamesBeat, wrote a really good article on why this happened, what's going on here, kind of trying to answer, people's questions when we first heard about this about, a week and a half ago or so. So a few days ago, Jeff wrote this article. As always, link in the description. Go over there, give Jeff a click. He does stellar work over at GamesBeat, over on Giant Bomb with his Grub Snack show. Go over there and check all of that out and support Jeff. It's something we are hearing more often these days. Making video games is difficult, and the job isn't any easier during a pandemic and labor shortage. And while this reality is turning into a new normal, it is forcing many businesses to remain flexible in how they tackle their challenges. That's exactly the thinking that led Xbox Game Studio developer The Initiative to hire Crystal Dynamics as a support studio for Microsoft's upcoming Perfect Dark project, according to sources familiar with the move. Development on Perfect Dark is in the process of ramping up. That was always the plan after a few years of pre-production and prototyping. But shifting into that higher gear is taking longer than Microsoft was hoping for. The initiative needs talent, but it is difficult to quickly hire hundreds of skilled developers, especially during the pandemic. And the initiative's boss, Daryl Gallagher, was also concerned about team cohesion. It's challenging to get hundreds of people to work together at a high level on their first project together. But Gallagher, who previously worked at Crystal Dynamics, still had strong connections to the studio and publisher Square Enix. He also deeply understands the capabilities of Crystal Dynamics. That led him to pitch all parties about a collaboration. Microsoft executives see this as very similar to large name studios like Certain Affinity working on the Master Chief Collection, or Sega's Creative Assembly working on Halo Wars 2, or Sega's Relic working on Age of Empires 4. In today's gaming market, this is a smart shortcut for Microsoft. Sure, it could go all out and hire a full team immediately. That might include poaching talent from Crystal Dynamics, but renting the entire team is faster and more efficient. While we see no indication that Perfect Dark is in trouble beyond the standard hurdles of publishing a game, like staffing, many fans came away with the announcement with concern. Perfect Dark and Xbox fans wondered why the studio built up like the initiative would need help at all. And the announcement seemed strange to them. But it's important to remember that the Xbox team loves announcing things. Microsoft has played the public relations game really well for the past 2 years or so, and it viewed this as another chance to get Perfect Dark in the news. Crystal Dynamics will also start hiring for positions to work on Perfect Dark, so Microsoft and Square Enix wanted to go ahead and get ahead of the press. The companies involved did not expect the backlash or concern, and that's for good reason. They didn't see anything strange about this collaboration. By all indications, Gallagher likely always suggested Crystal Dynamics as a possible partner, especially after the studio expanded with a new office in Austin. So, this is also just executing on a vision for how to get Perfect Dark up and running and complete in the next few years. As of June, Perfect Dark was on Microsoft's internal tracker for a 2023 release, but that is a tentative timeline, and it will likely depend on how the team up between the two studios works out. So, like I said, completely dropped the ball last week. Not talking about this, but I think Jeff really sums it up perfectly, no pun intended on Perfect Dark, on why this is happening and why outsourcing work and studios partnering with one another for development isn't necessarily earth-shattering or unheard of, to say the least. But one thing I think is important to talk about is the timing of this in the initiative's lifespan and, what happens next? What about the next game? Is this a model that we can expect from what is supposed to be Microsoft's new crown jewel in their stable of Xbox game studios? This quadruple A studio, homegrown studio that they've, touted, that is being built to tackle the same space as we've come to see from, powerhouse releases from the likes of Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, and Insomniac, to say the least. Will Perfect Dark 2 or whatever is next from them be a joint project, or should this be viewed as a simple means to help the workflow and logistical aspects of development getting started with their first game up and running while they continue to staff up? So this game just isn't coming out in 2026 or something. It's coming out in a timely manner. So, Mike, what do you kind of take of all of this? What do you think about really what's next for them? We kind of get that, hey, this isn't necessarily out of norm, but what about moving forward? Is this going to become the norm?
Yeah, I think whenever Microsoft makes decisions based on game development, it's something to really pay attention to. The way that they treat Halo and the way they treat Halo Infinite is basically everyone's a 1099 employee and there's expiring contracts all the time, and that's why there's such a big turnover rate with that game. Now, they might have remedied that issue. They may have decided to go with a little bit of a different model for game development with the rest of Halo Infinite. I don't know, but that was one of the reasons why the game got delayed in the first place. Is they had this huge turnover rate because people's contracts were expiring, and people didn't want to extend them because people were just using it as a stepping stone to move on to another company. As far as Crystal Dynamics is concerned, I feel like if you are a game development studio like the Initiative and you need some help, I think that you could do a lot worse as far as assistance is concerned. Crystal Dynamics has some bangers under their belt. I mean, yeah, they have Marvel Avengers, which people aren't too high on, but with the Tomb Raider games and those games that they developed, they can make really good first person story driven experiences.
Hell yeah.
And that's what I think they're going with Perfect Dark. So I don't see it as like the biggest deal in the world if you're going to go outside of your walls to get help. I think it's kind of the norm. I wish that Microsoft would do things a little bit differently as far as Halo's concerned. I wish that it was a little bit more like Bungie's operation where people had their hands on it from point A to point B, so from start to completion. But it's a different era out there, and we'll see what happens. But as far as Crystal Dynamics is concerned, and stressing for the game, I feel like if you're going to go get help, finding competent game developers isn't the easiest thing to do. So going to a company that's already established seems like a no-brainer to me. So I'm not necessarily super down on it, but I can understand why people would be a little bit concerned also. It's not like I'm totally ignorant to the fact that this could be troublesome, but at the same time I really don't see it as being an issue going forward.
Yeah, I completely understand that too. Whenever you see, like Jeff was saying, Microsoft loves to announce things. So getting out and saying in 2018, like at E3, on an E3 stage, saying, hey, we're starting, we're expanding Microsoft Game Studios, and including in that, we're starting our own from the ground up, triple or quadruple A studio. What we're considering, what's going to be a game studio that is pushing the bounds of what can be done what could be done in single player narrative driven games. I mean, they didn't say that, but basically came out and said that. But like really pushing, like, this is going to be a flag bearing, this is going to be a bar setting studio for what can be done with exclusive titles within gaming right now, specifically on consoles. So like, when you hear that as an Xbox fan, when you hear that as, even people in the media, when you hear that and you're reporting on that and you're talking about that, you're thinking, okay, we should expect this studio, one, it's going to take time to ramp up. Like, that just happens. And then a fucking pandemic hits. And yes, you can't, it's shit like that. You can't necessarily, like, help. So it's like, it is what it is kind of thing. So, outside of that, though, when you hear about, like, you hear about that, it's going to take time to ramp up the studio. It's going to take time for, people just don't get in, Naughty Dog just didn't one day, hey, let's turn the lights on, and, 2 months later, we ended up making a game. Like, it just, that's not how it happens. It takes time. Like, it does. And it's, I think as more people are becoming aware and seeing the curtain pulled back on what it is to and how difficult it is to make games, people are becoming more understanding in general. But it's interesting to think about more so I got the perception of people being like, oh, that's concerning after hearing all that. But at the same time, too, you just usually don't hear about this. You don't hear about, hey, 343 tapping certain affinity on the shoulder being like, hey, do you mind helping out with the Master Chief Collection? Or, Microsoft reaching out to them to, hey, we want to work with Saber Interactive. 343 is going to be the primary developer on this, but we want to reach out to Saber Interactive to help us with Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. Like, that's just, those things happen. And I mean, like, just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I mean, there's so many things in life about like that. But point being that if we wouldn't have heard about this, nobody would have ever known, because it'd be the same exact game you're going to get one way or another. But I think if anything, this shouldn't be concerning to fans in the now. This just means that, hey, we have a vision on this game. Because if they didn't feel comfortable enough to take this past prototype, if they didn't feel like they had a game, Microsoft has the bandwidth. They want this game to come out and be something that pushes Game Pass subscriptions, pushes console sales. Like, this isn't just if it flops, it flops. No, there's a ton of money behind this game, because guess what? Crystal Dynamics is still getting a fucking boatload of cash thrown their way. It's not like they're just doing this for free. Like
it's goodwill.
Yeah, like, this is gonna take a lot of cash to get done. So, like, to me, this is more, for in the short term, more of a positive thing, because this means that, hey, they have a vision and they're ready to capitalize on it. They just don't have the workforce to do so. So instead of making this game wait until 2026 to play it, let's try to get it out in 2023. Obviously, in due time, and take your time and whatever, but if they feel confident enough in their pipeline within the next 2 years to get this game out and actually, go gold on this within, 24 months, more power to them. Like, that's a good thing. You should feel confident that they feel confident in that. So as somebody who supports Xbox and who plays those games and who's excited about this game, that just means that, hey, we see the vision for this game. We don't want to lose sight of that. We're ready to move forward with that now. We just can't, we don't want to wait to hire people. We have a talented studio we want to work with, and, that's that. But what is interesting, though, to think about is the future is, hey, what's the next game going to look like? Is this something that's going to stay? And I really think it just depends on what the fuck our workforce looks like. Like, I don't think this is going to be, because it's almost like I brought up, hey, last weekend our dog was sick and we had to, and unfortunately, like, she was really, really sick, like scary sick for what we thought. And we had to take her to like an emergency vet, and, luckily she's okay. She's totally fine and everything now, but it ended up being nothing, but she was really acting like worrisome. So we took her to an emergency vet, and it's a long fucking wait there. But you know what? Like, being a vet or a vet tech even, like, that's not something you can just, it's not like, working at a Best Buy or working at retail. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not something that you can go in with no prior experience or education. Like, just like game development, you have to have prior experience. You have to have a technical skill. It's almost like a trade. Like, you have to have the skill set to be able to go in and do that. They can't just yank anybody off the street and say, trust me, as somebody who is going through and trying to get certifications and learn the trade of 3D modeling and animation and things like that, like, it is not fucking turnkey. Like, it's getting better, but like, it's not something you can just grab somebody and say, okay, cool, go ahead and make this. Like,
yeah,
you can't. So like, that kind of process, you're already pulling from a pool of, a much lower pool than your traditional workforce. Not lower, but like a smaller pool, I mean. But on top of that too, you're not just wanting anybody to come in and do this job. You're wanting good people, like skilled, talented individuals to come in and do this. So it really, I think, just depends on what the workforce is going to look like. Yeah, people don't want to necessarily work for free anymore. Like, I don't fucking blame people just for the sole fact of the fucking dollar hasn't, like, the cost of living hasn't kept up with inflation in terms of what people are getting paid, and people are calling bullshit on it to a degree. And, if for once people are like, you know what, I'd rather have the government pay me to stay home during a pandemic hey, I'm getting more out of the government right now than, for all the fucking years that I paid taxes and shit and pretty much never saw anything off of it. So yeah, for once I'm going to fucking do that until some shit starts changing, or, until I do have to finally go back to work. But point being, like, you just got to fucking, like, if you look at what's going to happen in the future with this, it's almost unpredictable. I would personally think this gives them much more leeway, and with Microsoft having such a high density of cash on hand, that they are comfortable enough to, hey, while we're having Crystal Dynamics come and partner with us, we're also filling in these permanent spots that we're going to have. And I'm sure, guess what? They're probably going to fucking pull people from Crystal Dynamics to work at the initiative long term. If they like what they're fucking doing, I'm sure they're going to grab them and say, hey man, like, we really like what you've done with this. We want you to be here permanent. We want you to work on our next game. We want you to be part of this development studio full time. Like, that's going to happen. They're going to pull from people. It's just how businesses work. It's how especially creative businesses work. Like, they're going to be upping this staff as we go on. And hopefully Perfect Dark's fucking great. Like, we don't know how this game's going to be received, but we know that Microsoft also is going to give them a fucking nice long leash, because they have the bandwidth and the financial bandwidth as well to be able to do that. And, I definitely think this is going to be one of those, hey, this is just to get us started. But I'm really curious to just see what the workforce in general looks like what the workforce in general looks like in 2023 after this game potentially comes out. Like, is the initiative going to be at what they consider, full staff? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be what they ballpark on, I'm sure maybe 250 people? Is it going to be something like that? Who knows? So I think it's going to depend more on that than the reception of the game or anything like that, because that's not going to matter if they're going to keep making games one way or another. But I'm curious to see just what our economy looks like, what our job, what our worker pool looks like. From a talent standpoint, I'm just really curious to see, because the industry's only going to keep going greater and greater and greater. Gaming's at its biggest it's ever been, and it's only going to keep going up and up and up and up. I don't see a bubble like we saw with, in the early 80s and, before really the NES brought home gaming back to life. I don't think we're going to see anything like that necessarily. It might become oversaturated with certain genres and things like that if it already hasn't been, but I think more than anything, we're going to see more and more ways to game and more people getting into gaming, whether it's casual or not. Like, it's just only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So to me, this is more of a, hey, we have this vision for this game ready to go. We're ready to execute on it. Instead of waiting to hire up a full staff of people that we're going to do and going to take us probably 2 years now just to do that alone, because of what's being offered right now from a talent pool, due to the low amount of workers or workforce right now. Instead of that, we have a studio that's incredibly talented. If you look at their output, sure, Marvel's Avengers necessarily didn't light anybody's fucking head on fire or hair on fire from, what it offered. I thought the campaign was great, and it seems to be getting in a much better place now as a live service game. But the Tomb Raider games are fucking fantastic. They know how to make cinematic, single-player, narrative-driven adventure titles. So, and guess what? That's what we're looking for in Perfect Dark. This is going to be first person, but it's going to be something that is being built as, hey, this is a single player experience that we're trying to have rival what is being offered by our competitors, what is moving consoles right now. We want this to do that. Only this time, yeah, our consoles, but more importantly, our service. This is going to drive Game Pass subscription, so we're ready to start doing that. And I'm sure, and I guarantee, when you look at Playground Games, they're probably partnering with somebody to work on fucking Fable. I guarantee Bethesda is probably pulling from different studios around. They share, id Tech is shared all throughout Bethesda. Like, the technology that is shared, like, within a ZeniMax, like, who originally, at one point owned all of Bethesda, Bethesda Game Studio, id, Machine Game, you name it, all of those game studios, like, they're sharing stuff all between them. And guess what? Now Microsoft's going to start pulling from them. I guarantee you're going to see id Tech implemented in various aspects within their other fucking traditional Microsoft or Xbox game studios. Like,
why wouldn't you?
Right. That's what's so fucking, like, people don't understand that. Like, it's a network. You, like, fucking go talk to anybody on the PlayStation end and talk about how you want to talk to developers from that end. All you hear is how cohesive and how much of a network, if anything, PlayStation Studios is between studios. You look at all the time of, perfect example. Death Stranding from Kojima Productions. And what people were expecting, hey, this is going to be a game that doesn't, like, when it was first announced in 2016, or, like, shown the teaser trailer, people were like, this game is not coming out for, like, 10 years. And then 3 years later, the game came out. Fully came out. Because guess what? He didn't fucking build his own engine. He got the Decima engine from Guerrilla Games, a PlayStation studio. Like, people just need to understand that, like, this happens all the fucking time. But Microsoft announced this game early, which is totally fine. It's their IP. They do what they want to do with this project. I totally don't disagree. I was ready to hear about this fucking project. I know a ton of people were. But they announced it probably a little bit earlier than they should have. And to fucking get ahead of the curve, they fucking said, even though this shouldn't be announced, Crystal Dynamics is helping us out with this game. They're going to be a support studio for this. Because guess what? I implore everybody who feels that this is a worrisome thing that's happening right now, any game, any fucking game you play, any game you played in the past 20 years, when you finish the game, or actually just you could just go in the fucking menu at this point, go to the credits, and actually sit there and look at the credits. I guarantee if it's whatever fucking game you're playing, or whatever platform you're playing on, whether it's, PlayStation, PC, whatever, any large-scale AAA game, look at it. Look at the credits. And just look. I guarantee you're going to find some shit in there in terms of who worked on this game that you really did not expect. So, it's just not rocket science. Like, just seriously, look. All big developers, Activision. Look at Activision and look at the umbrella that's under them. Like, trust me. There's like 4 or 5 studios who work on one single game. Yes, there's one game. There's primarily like one development studio who handles the bulk of it, but there's a reason why these large-scale AAA publishers own multiple fucking studios. Because it all funnels back into the same thing. Like, all these projects, like, feed the bigger beast at the end of the day. So, it's not a competition in the most sense, outside of the networks it is, but, like, there's a reason why there's a reason why these things are never talked about, because it causes more drama than it needs to. And it just, to me, this is like the biggest non-factor in the world. This, if anything, this is a fucking positive thing, because Crystal Dynamics makes good shit. Like, I want you to look at what they did with Tomb Raider, which was in a fucking really bad spot up until 2013's Tomb Raider reboot. And then look at what they were able to do with an IP that was in really fucking big trouble to what it was by the end of Shadow. Which, Shadow wasn't received as well, but Rise of the Tomb Raider was one of the best narrative-driven games, period, last generation. So, and look at it from a technical standpoint, writing standpoint, visual standpoint, mechanic standpoint. This is the initiative's game. This is the initiative's vision. All they're doing is getting support from another studio. They're just fucking filling spots with talented people to help out, to make sure this game comes out before you're dead. Before you fucking are 80 years old and just like, man, I really want to fucking play this game, but, well, you know what? I didn't want Crystal Dynamics to help out, now I'm just gonna fucking die. Like, just relax. Relax, it's gonna be okay. Now, if they came out and said, like, if we're starting to hear, well, yeah, they're really struggling to, like, get this game off the ground, and it's still in gray box, and, like, they're still prototyping, like, yeah, that's a little different. If this game's in development hell, yeah, that'd be a little fucking different. Then we'd be like, okay, like, if it's an Anthem situation, yeah, but this game, like, just left pre-production, like, probably, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, if that, like, it's all good. Anyways, Mike, after all of that, let's move into our last news article for this week, and story for this week, I should say. There's a little less, I guess, I don't want to say abrasive. I guess I wasn't trying to be pissed off or anything like that, but, like, it's just like, this is just another one of those things that turns into a console wars bullshit at the end of the day. And that's the biggest stupid bullshit out there. As somebody who plays on everything, somebody who is trying to get into game development, like, I fucking adore Xbox. But guess what? One of the games I would kill to fucking work on in one of the franchises is fucking Marvel's Spider-Man. That's one of the biggest games I would kill to fucking work and make for that game. At the same time, I'd also kill and work on Halo. Like, I love all games. I'd kill to work in a Zelda game. Like, like, it just is what it is. Like, these things just are happening Nintendo has made a fucking... Don't even get me started on Nintendo. Nintendo has made their fucking livelihood off of outsourcing studios to make their fucking games for their IP. Look at all the studios, before they were bought, before they were anything. Look at the amount of studios who work on one project for Nintendo. That should end it all. Anyways, though, Mike, let's move into our next news article before I get my jimmies rustled again, I guess. I don't know why I'm talking loud.
You're very rustled, though.
I
You're
am
already rustled.
I think it's just because I'm ready to get together with everyone this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a shit show in the best way possible. It's going to be awesome.
I hope so.
It's going to be awesome. Anyways, though, Mike, let's head into, for the third time now, let's head into our last news article for this week. And we're talking Konami, but more importantly, For once, we're not talking fucking pachinko machines. We're talking Metal Gear, baby. We're talking Castlevania. We're talking Silent Hill. Konami is set to revive Metal Gear, Castlevania, and Silent Hill. This comes from Andy Robinson over at VGC. As always, link in the description. Go over there, give Andy a click. All the guys and gals over at VGC, for all the great work they do, go over there and check them out. So let's dive on into it. Konami is set to ramp up its what they call premium game development with new installments and remakes from its biggest franchises, including Metal Gear and Castlevania. That's according to publishing sources who spoke to VGC anonymously because they did not have permission to discuss their projects publicly. Konami's premium games output has slowed down significantly in recent years. The last new Metal Gear game was 2018's critically panned Metal Gear Survive, while the last mainline Castlevania was 2014's Lord of Shadows 2. In the past decade, the company has arguably grown a bigger reputation for its pachinko gambling games than for its premium PC and console releases. However, following a restructure to the company's game development division earlier this year, Konami is now focused on bringing back its biggest brands to the premium game space, VGC was told. The first of these titles will be a new Castlevania game, which sources describe as a, quote, reimagining of the series currently in development internally at Konami in Japan, with support from local external studios. Oh my god! That's crazy! Did you hear that, Mike?
Yeah, imagine that. A studio going to help with another studio that already has established game developers on it.
By God, he is broken in half! There has been much speculation that Demon Souls studio Bluepoint could be working on a remake of Metal Gear Solid. However, VGC was told the series is actually being worked on by an external studio, Virtuos. Established in 2004, Virtuos is one of the largest game developers in the world and focuses on supporting the development of major AAA games or bringing existing games to new platforms. Oh my god! Recently, it worked on the Switch ports of Dark Souls Remastered, The Outer Worlds, and the BioShock Collection, as well as contributing art and content to blockbusters such as Battlefield 1, Uncharted 4, and Horizon Zero Dawn. The new project is currently in early development, and multiple sources suggest it would be centered around fan-favorite entry Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, rather than the original MGS. Konami also intends to release remasters of the original Metal Gear Solid games for modern consoles ahead of the larger project we understand. Finally, multiple Silent Hill games are currently in development at various external game development studios, as per an earlier VGC report from February. One of those projects was outsourced to a prominent Japanese developer earlier this year, we're told. Wonder who. Konami should publicly showcase its plans at major shows next year, disruption from the pandemic permitting. Konami pulled out of this year's E3 2021 show due to, quote, timing issues, although at the time it confirmed it had, quote, a number of key projects in the works. Konami's Japanese bosses are understood to have historically pushed back against most pitches to outsource its key gaming brands, which is a big reason why previous pitches for Silent Hill games, such as the one by Until Dawn Studio Supermassive, weren't greenlit. However, following the disappointing performance in recent in-house titles such as Metal Gear Survive and Contra Rogue Corps, VGC's sources said the company has become more willing to contract outside studios for its major franchises. VGC first reported Konami's softening of its stance over licensing its game properties earlier this year, in a report revealing that the company has outsourced a new Silent Hill game. Last year, Konami ramped up its game efforts with the creation of a new external publishing program with which it hoped to sign more Western-developed titles. So, I know it's early, and I'll be honest, I don't give two fucks if the second one has the potential to be a PS5 exclusive, but the hype is fucking palpable right now, in my case, for a return to form from not only Metal Gear, and the possibility of Kojima Productions handling a Silent Hill entry. I mean, just inject it into my veins. If that's it, I'm the biggest drug user around. If that's the drug that's going on, give me that shit right now. In all seriousness, though, it's great to hear that Konami is really beginning to see their adjustments that position themselves to have a return to what they're calling premium games again. I'm sure they're going to have their hand in pachinko games until the end of time, but it's great to see them really start to transition back into, hey, we're ready to make games again. We're ready to put talented people in the positions to make incredible games again from these incredible backlog of IPs that we have. So the industry, in my opinion, is better having the likes of MGS, Silent Hill, and Castlevania in it, at least when they're not fucking Metal Gear Survive, thank God. So, Mike, is there a way where Konami can land, let's say, the metaphorical plane in the best way possible with these supposed impending announcements that are right around the corner within the next, 8 months or so that satisfy fans? Both Metal Gear and Silent Hill have pretty steep hills ahead of them, and with how the latter really fell from grace due to the falling out with Kojima and the Silent Hills project he had with Konami, that definitely doesn't help their cause either. And Castlevania is supposedly looking to reinvent itself for its return, so seeing something that may be completely different from what's been known from Castlevania, there's a lot riding on this in general, just to say the least. So can this actually be a best case scenario outcome with this?
Yeah, I mean, when this story, when we start talking about this story and we're discussing the realisticness of everything going on, it's interesting to me that this hasn't already been taken care of, because I feel like with the resurgence or the popularity of remakes right now, whether it be the Tony Hawk games, D2R, even Resident Evil games, it's clear that people are kind of fiending for a more classic experience, but having updated engines seems like kind of the best of both worlds. Like, you can have a classic Castlevania experience. Now, classic, depending on, I'm not talking NES side-scrolling classic, unless that's what you want, because we've seen games like Terraria do really well, and I know it's not the same, but basically, you can kind of do whatever you want. And the fact that Metal Gear Solid hasn't been made in so long, and there's a lot of nuances and changes to the way the games are being made, it just seems really interesting to me that it's taken this long, because the experiences that you experienced, whether it be in 2015 or whenever, are going to be very different. Because that's 6 years ago already. The things that are doable on with video games right now is so different that it's going to be a very different experience, whenever they make these games. Now, thinking about Silent Hill specifically, obviously they kind of cleaned up and closed down the real life place that, the game was modeled after, unfortunately, for us people that live in Pennsylvania. That's one of our claims to fame. But obviously, having a new Silent Hill. Now, Silent Hill is a game that kind of off of my radar, because when I was younger, I wasn't really into horror games. But now I'm certainly into them and would be interested to see how they play. So I'm definitely interested to see how they make these games. But I think that enough time has elapsed and there's enough changes to the games now where I don't see how an experience that's created could be, unless they're just completely and totally tone deaf and can't read the room, which, by the way, don't let me put it past anyone, because apparently that's harder than you think. I could see these experiences being not only refreshing and new, but still classic. That's something that I've noticed with D2R. Now, I know they're not going to do a remaster or remake or anything, but I think game development studios are finally realizing if it's not broke, don't fix it. Point blank, there's games that, simply put, aren't broke, for lack of better terms. There's nothing wrong with some of these experiences, and you going out of your way to completely change those experiences is doing nothing but, putting people who are fans of your game in a bind, because sometimes we just want to experience the classic stuff. And if you come in and you do something with D2 Remastered or something of the sort, we're going to be thankful that you took the time and created these games, because there's good quality of life adjustments that can be made and changes that can be made that are so subtle, but to make the game so much better and more enjoyable for everyone, including people who would still play Diablo 2, even though it's 20 years old, like myself, and people that are wanting to experience it for the first time, or maybe for the second or third time, but it's been a long time since they've done it. So all these games have so much new technology to utilize that I don't see how mean, there can be stinkers. Trust me. That's not something that's like totally impossible, but it's something that seems a lot more far fetched now than ever before.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree. I definitely think we're at the point that, how do I put this? Pretty much all the games that are in this, the three major ones that, because I'm sure Contra is going to be thrown in there too, but specifically MGS, Silent Hill, and Castlevania, all three of those are games that still have very cherished memories around them. Mm-hmm. All three of those games are very much like, they all have the Splinter Cell effect, what I like to call. People understand that, hey, no, but granted, Splinter Cell also didn't end on a stinker, but, you know, I also don't count Metal Gear Survive as really anything to fucking, you know, but there's two game franchises, and they're very similar. I mean, Splinter Cell there's a reason why Splinter Cell really came out right around the time, and really why Xbox wanted the exclusivity around Splinter Cell with Ubisoft when it first released. You know, there's a reason why there's an espionage game that Microsoft was trying to push at that time with the success of Metal Gear Solid on the PS1, and then obviously Metal Gear Solid 2 whenever that was coming out right around the launch of the PS2. So, like, there's a whole reason behind all of that. But both of these games having that effect of their mainline games didn't end in a bad way. Their mainline games didn't end in a way that, oh, we want to, this needs a break. No, people are ready for more of that. People have been clamoring, hey, we want a new Splinter Cell. Hey, we want Blue Point Games to remake Metal Gear Solid. Hey, we want a new Metal Gear Solid. We want, you know, and same with, you know, Silent Hill. Hey, people fucking, PT is still if you look up a list of scariest games and, you know, best horror games ever, PT, a fucking playable teaser, a 20-minute game, is at the top of almost every list. That was basically a playable teaser for Hideo Kojima's Silent Hills, which was supposed to be a reinvention of Silent Hill. There's a reason why people keep fucking asking for this stuff. Like, you know, it's because these brands and these IPs still have recognition and still have weight to them. And I am just so fucking thrilled that we're finally getting more of that. Especially, too, like, not to mention from a game preservation standpoint, it sounds like all of these are going to get, hey, we're moving these forward. And even, too, just recently, the Castlevania Advanced Collection just came out. It was announced at the last Nintendo Direct, dropped that day, you know, getting those games available. But the biggest thing, too, is really not having, I shouldn't say not having available, but more importantly, the first Metal Gear Solid is almost like fucking impossible to play right now. Granted, It's available on GOG. You can go on GOG and play it. But that port is also the like native version of the like 1998 port of the PS1 version of the game for PC. So it's broke as fuck for the most part. You have to like mod it to get it to work properly. At the same time, though, if you want to play that thing on console, cool, you better have a PS3 or a PS1. But quote unquote, if you want to even try to consider modern, but I guess HD console that's available, you have to have a PS3 and you have to be able to buy it digitally. And that's literally the only way possible. There's no version of the game. So having that available, a remastered version of the first one at least, for a preservation standpoint, to me is fucking huge. Because that game is fucking fantastic. That game is, the DNA of that game can be found in almost 75% of all really action-adventure games in general. Really, any stealth game ever, pretty much. Any modern stealth game ever. Assassin's Creed, Splinter Cell, like I said, you name it, any stealth mechanic, really, look at Metal Gear Solid for making stealth mechanics work in 3D in a way that is damn near perfect. Not to mention, on top of that, really bringing cinematic experiences to console, like, cinematic experiences to gaming in general, for the most part, making that work in 3D, making you feel like you're watching a movie, or playing a movie, I should say. that was really one of the real major first ones to knock it out of the park. But in general, too, having these experiences that are ripe for the picking, that people have been waiting for, finally having Konami say, you know what, we're ready to commit to that again, is fucking huge. Do I think they land the plane? I definitely think, let's put it this way. You always hear the smartest people in life and the most successful people in life are the ones that surround themselves with other successful people and put themselves in to help put themselves in like the best position possible. Finally kind of I don't want to say putting their ego aside or anything like that, but finally realizing, hey, it's okay to license out our IP, not even license out, but it's okay to bring in development studios. Look at Marvel games. Marvel's approach and what now Disney is wanting Disney's wanting to take what they did with Marvel in terms of games and do it with Star Wars now, is say, look, instead of just signing an exclusivity deal like they did, Star Wars did with EA, we're going to go and we're going to take pitches. We're also going to go and scout pretty much. Like, we're going to go and approach talented teams, talented studios that we want to work with or think that what they offer from a, skill set standpoint, what games that they've outputted before, what they do really well with mechanics, who we think we should partner with because they fit with X IP really well, or we think they would, or we think that, just with the Marvel lineage that we have available in our IPs, their skill set could work really well with us. Same with, I think that's what Konami is now much more open to do. They're wanting to put themselves in the best position to succeed, and opening the door to working with as many successful studios as possible is a great first start. They also need to, like they are doing, they're still going to work internally on a lot of stuff. Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid, I'm sure too. We are going to see a Metal Gear Solid 6, whether it's called Metal Gear Solid 6 or not. It's going to happen one day, whether or not, we expect it to or not. And we're eventually going to see a remake of the first one too. Like, it's just going to happen. But it's stuff like that, hey, we know that we want to work. We know that this is what people want. One, we're going to make a shitload of money off it. And two, because we're also cognitive of what's going on in the industry and how impactful our brands and how much weight our IP still carry, we know that we can be just as successful if we say, hey, yes, we'll let you take the reins on this one, or we'll play support while you manage and you take your talent and put it into our game. So I'm super excited about this. I think there is a way that they land this, but at the same time, there's a way that we get a Metal Gear Survive out of this as well. Anything is possible, but at the same time too, I think it's more likely than not that now that they're at least open to, hey, let's start to branch out and take pitches and work with people and, hopefully, knock on wood, have a Silent Hill game by Kojima type of thing. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be that. Hell, give fucking Bloober Team, that supposedly was rumored to be working on a Silent Hill game. Silent Hill has, I think Konami said they have like 3 different Silent Hill projects in the works right now, or that's what the report was. And one of them is a Silent Hill project with a prominent Japanese developer. The other one was to be rumored with Bloober Team, that they were going to get to do a Silent Hill project of some sort. And another one was Konami internal. So if that's the case, that's fucking fantastic, because Bloober Team's another one that would be great to work with. But being able to open to say, yes, these IP that people have been wanting, we have the Capcom bandwidth to go out and do that, to say, yes, you studio take that, or like Nintendo's doing now. And I'm sure Nintendo was a big pillar to say, hey, yeah, we said, fuck it. We'll let Ubisoft make a Mario game of some sort. Like, granted, Mario doesn't jump, which is his claim to fame, but you can play a Mario game developed by Ubisoft right now on your Switch, and people like that game. It's a good game. It's a very good game. If you like XCOM, play that fucking game. Like, it's successful. So, like, if Nintendo can fucking do it, it's like Gretzky getting traded. You never thought it would happen, but sure as shit, one of the greatest players to ever play hockey got fucking traded. So, I won't call him the greatest player in the world, because we know who the greatest player in the world was. So,
yes,
it doesn't matter if you're from Pittsburgh or not. You know who the greatest player in the world was. So, Point being, though, anything like being able to open up these doors is what I think is going to lead to Konami being successful again. It's the writings on the wall that this is how the industry is going and how they should be going. Where these IP people understand that there's more people than ever playing games and more avenues and more ways people are wanting to experience games, whether it's in a straight up, hey, it's a remake of Metal Gear Solid, or hey, it's a new Metal Gear experience, or hey, it's a retro style Metal Gear experience. There is an audience for that somewhere. And we've seen it time and time again with games like Resident Evil, where, hey, we have the remakes that we want to put out, and, we're taking these games in new directions. And we also have, we do have Resident Evil Revelations experiences, and we have our new mainline series which we're taking in a new direction. We're taking it in a first-person modern horror style experience. So to me, this is a perfect, this is exactly what I want out of Konami. To put, I don't want to say pride to the side, but more so smart enough and more logical enough to say, yes, this is what's best for our IP, and this is what's best for not only us, the fans, everyone in general. This is a win-win for everyone. So I think there's a way it happens. I think it's 60% chance it happens, but I'm more positive than not that this is a good thing that's going to happen. If we get fucking 6 great games out of 10, that is a fucking win in my book, by all means. 60% will put you in the fucking Hall of Fame a billion times over. So if you're batting if you're batting 600 in the majors, you're going to be the greatest fucking player to ever live. So I'm all for that. Anyways, Mike, before we wrap up the show, let's head into Party Chat. If you're new to the show, Party Chat's where we propose one question at the end of each week that we want to discuss with you listener, who we are caressing your earlobes and your inner ear with our voices right now. And this is now an ASMR podcast. Mike, is this how we talk now? Should we talk like this now?
I don't think anyone wants to hear that.
I'm now going to drink this Coca-Cola. And after answering ourselves, we kick it over to you to hit us with your responses over on our Twitter at GPGC Podcast, where we'll read some of the responses the following week. You can also email us too. I forgot about that. bonusaccessory@gmail.com. Anyways, though, Mike, last week's question. Do you expect Avowed to be as popular as many expected now that Microsoft owns Bethesda and Elder Scrolls 6? And XX Masked Me XX on Twitter said, no, I'm worried that TES, the Elder Scrolls, will overshadow it completely. Interesting. So, this week's question, Mike. By 2025, will the discussion of Xbox's presence in the Japanese market be positive or negative, and why? So not 2 years from now, almost 3 years from now. Because it's almost 2022 at this point. So, basically 3 years from now, will the discussion of Xbox's presence in the Japanese market be positive or negative, and why?
I would say we've been getting some toughies lately.
Oh, well, I mean,
I will say positive. And the reason why I would say positive is because I believe with the studios being acquired and with all the hard work being done in that region, it's gonna pay dividends for Xbox over there, especially with the Game Pass subscription option for them.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think at bare minimum it will be more positive than it is now. I mean, realistically, well, I shouldn't say now, but I definitely think it will be in a much more positive light than it is now. Not that, it's been trending in the right direction for, probably the last year now. But in general, I definitely see with the commitment, like we talked about earlier, Tango Gameworks being able to, a prominent Japanese developer there, being able to put out a new, project that's being supported primarily on the Xbox platform, and then PC as well, but being an Xbox exclusive, that's huge. How many times would you have thought in the past 20 years, with how the response to the Japanese market has been, would you hear, yes, Xbox now has a first-party Japanese development studio that is producing, a high-end first-party game for them? Like, you just would have never thought about it. And it's coming from one of the original creator of Resident Evil 4 and one of the best minds in survival horror. A game that's coming from really the mind of that man. Like, I definitely think there's no way that it's worse than it is, but I definitely think people won't put that in a negative. Like, there will be much more reason to say it's going in the right direction than it isn't. So primarily, yes, positive. I think so on my end. But anyways, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet? Talk about all the things we talked about today. Obviously, ASMR, that's what we got to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. No, but Metal Gear and Konami bringing all of their dope shit back. Obviously, the big rants that we went on with the initiative hiring Crystal Dynamics and how that's not a big fucking deal at all. Where can people find you on the internet? Talk about all that and more on the interwebs.
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. You can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including at Travelus_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with me, you can do so over on Xbox Live. Just regular old Travelus. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can get new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, SoundCloud, and all of their major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get a podcast at, rate us, review us, all that jazz. The whole rigmarole that I tell you every week. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. And Mike, that's going to do it for our episode this week, finally. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors. Black Lives Matter. And we will see you next week.